bitch, a ribbon poker toe. We invented the cherry tomato and Waze USB drives and the Iron Dome. Israeli salad, Uzi Stenton, Jaffa's Orange Crow. Microchips is us, iPhone cameras us, taco salads us, Bodavamos us, Olive Garden us, White Cloth for us, Sabra Hamas, Hasbara sus.
Shalom and welcome to Bad Hasbara,
the world's most moral podcast.
My name is Matt Lieb. I will be your most moral co-host for this podcast.
And I am Daniel Mate, the other half of this sometimes dynamic duo.
We can be dynamic.
We can be dynamic.
I've heard from many a listener that one of the things about our duodom is that we are quite dynamic. We do all sorts of loud noises, and then soft whispers,
pianissimo, and then be mezzo forte, and
get mezzo forte. Yell at me.
That's you want me to do fortissimo? I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Matt Lieb, I love you.
I love you too, dog. Oh, I love when you yell at me. So good to see you. So good to see all of you out there in podcast land. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Just a reminder, please go ahead and give us those 5 stars and those reviews on the various podcast apps. We are still, of course, being attacked by the Hebrew Telegram group. They are trying to destroy our stars. We are activating iron stars. Please make sure you intercept their bad review missiles and and help us get our podcast seen by people who are on podcast apps. It helps us.
Our bad review bunkers are not that well built.
No. Yeah,
they were hastily constructed. They're not quite fortified. So
yes, exactly. We cannot, withstand a giant barrage of bad reviews from people whose Hebrew is clearly their first language, and
it's not like we have a global empire, but
no.
Backing. I mean, that Iranian money only goes.
It only goes so far, man. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we're trying to, we're trying to get more of that, Iranian money. We're trying to get some of that. We're trying to be a sort of like Houthi-like proxy. We want to be a little mini Hezbollah, but with podcasts, like a podcast Hezbollah. That's what we want. So help us by going to patreon.com/badhasbara. Please be our Iran. So go there and join, and then you get one, bonus episode a week, roughly. Sometimes not, but sometimes yes. And for sure, what you get is every episode before it actually airs. You get it at least a day early, which is nice for people who need their slop.
And on weeks when we don't put out a bonus episode, you at least get the pleasurable anticipation of, is there going to be a bonus episode?
Yeah, that's fun.
You get the highs, the soaring highs and crushing lows.
Exactly.
You get the disappointment. You
Yes.
you get the partial reinforcement, which it's why nice. A lot of us stay in unhealthy relationships. It seems to be the thrill of life for people. It's what motivates,
It's what keeps
a lot
us
of things
going.
in life. It's what keeps us going.
You never know. It's like you go to a party. You're like, hey, am I gonna meet a girl tonight? Am I gonna meet my future wife?
Fin-doming us as
yes.
Producer Adam Levin. Shout out
to producer Adam Levin, by the way,
on the ones, twos, chirons.
That's right. He's up here doing lower thirds and upper fourths, and just crushing it on the ones and twos. Please also, if you have money, please donate to our sponsor. Today's sponsor is, and by the way, when I say sponsor, people have asked like, oh, are they actually like sponsoring? No, none of these organizations know about this podcast. We just shout them out and call them sponsors because it's fun. Today's episode is brought to you by Palestine Red Crescent Society. The Palestine Red Crescent Society is an officially recognized independent Palestinian national society. It is a part of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement and operates in Palestine and the diaspora. PRCS is guided by the Geneva Conventions and the movement's fundamental principles: humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, voluntary service, unity, and universality. So, please, for the love of God, go to Palestine, rcs.org/en for English, and donate now, because as you have probably seen, if you've been paying attention, a lot of these organizations are being attacked, Palestine Red Crescent specifically, along with things like the World Kitchen and stuff like that, just being, illegally bombed by a genocidal apartheid state. So please give them the money. They need it more than we do. Daniel, what's the spin?
The spin today involves several records. I know we're going to be talking about sort of an award ceremony for haters, all about haters. So I've got Notorious B.I.G. Life After Death, which has the song Player Hater.
That's right. Hell
yeah. Hater. I know we're going to be talking about Lebanon a fair bit, so I got some Ferouz.
Oh.
Ferouz, the diva of that country.
Yes. The Diana Ross of Lebanon.
Yeah, exactly. The Diana Ross of Israel, her backup group was the Supremacists.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. You got it.
I had to sort that one out. I had to get my leveler, my joke leveler out. And get that one right. We just had Black Friday in the States, so always love bringing out some Steely Dan.
Okay.
For the song Black Friday, about a bunch of what to do the day after the financial crash. Then finally, there was a tweet about a Haaretz article that came out a few weeks ago, and ever since then I haven't been able to get this Curtis Mayfield song out of my head. So I've got Curtis live,
beautiful,
live in New York. But if you want to put that tweet up on the screen, Trudeau, get ready. Nearly 8,000 Israelis have received temporary Canadian work visas so far this year, 5 times the number in 23. And just immediately it was, in my head, Trudeau, get ready. There's Israelis coming. And someone on Twitter finished the verse for me. It's, you don't need no Mounties unless Netanyahu's on board.
That's beautiful.
Because Trudeau did say he would follow law and
that's right,
and arrest these.
Well, he said he would
these
follow
good friends of his.
law.
These good friends of his.
Yeah, his best friends, the Netanyahus. He said he would. It would be amazing if Netanyahu was arrested by one of the Moose cops.
Yeah,
that would be insane.
Trudeau's such a good boy. He's like, look.
Yeah. He loves the teacher.
He loves the teacher.
Yeah.
He loves his best friend, but he'll sell his best friend out to the teacher, not for moral principle.
No.
But
because he loves the international he loves international rule of law, the world order.
He loves his own legitimacy. And that's what these warrants are actually good for, to put people like him in that position.
Exactly.
It's only freakish nations like the United States that will just come out and say, we don't care about that. We ain't reading all that. Yeah, that's the thing. Are you really about that rules-based life? Or is it all a front for American imperialism? It's usually the latter. I think I saw a tweet by fellow Canadian Dan Beckner, who said something like rules-based international martial law.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Daniel, to get into this episode, we have it's a monumentous episode. We have a great guest. We have a lot of content. A lot of things have happened, but I need to start out.
Did you just say monumentous?
Did I? It's very possible. I'm not fully awake yet, so sometimes I say words that aren't words.
I love that word.
There's nothing wrong with making up words. English.
No, I love words that combine two words and create. Like for me,
perfectly cromulent word,
It's
dog.
perfectly cromulent. I was in a bodega once, and I heard someone referring to something as a tragisty.
Tragedy is great.
I thought that was fantastic.
That's fantastic. That is a word now.
Yeah.
Because travesty and a tragedy is a travesty.
Yeah, and something that's both momentous and monumental is monumentous.
Monumentous. I'm allowed. I am allowed. But we have a monumentous new segment thanks to the people at stopantisemitism.org. I don't know if you know this, but there's an
Not
award
our sponsors.
show. Not our sponsors.
But our muses.
Our muses, absolutely. You
Don't give them your money.
No. In fact, if you can find a way to take money, do it. If you're like, that the lady who runs it's like, I don't know, personal assistant, just go through the bank account and start sucking her dry. But they are doing an award show, the Anti-Semites of the Year. And I got to say, it is an action-packed list that has...
What is that, 10 nominees?
Yeah, dude, 10 nominees. Look at this. You got Hassan Piker, Corey Bush, John Cusack, Greta Thunberg, Jake Shields, Jess Natalie, Jackson Hinkle, Candace Owens, Dan Blitzerian. Bilzerian. And sorry, I was thinking Blitzerian, kind of like he's very Nazi coded. And Bassem Youssef.
Blitzerian. Jess Natalie is the only one I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know Jess Natalie either.
Natal.
Oh, is it Natal? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no I.
I don't know Jess, but I know the rest of them, and we do have one of them, former guest, Bassem Youssef, who I believe should run away with it. I mean, this guy's been campaigning hard to get that, He's out there just trying to fucking, bring light to an actual genocide every day, like a fucking anti-Semite,
Yep.
It's just, it is... It's crazy that they have this list where they mix in like people who are just like, the problem isn't Zionism, it's Jews, like Dan, Blitzkrieg-Zarian.
Yeah. I wouldn't say necessarily I'm an anti-Semite, although I wouldn't be surprised or concerned or disturbed if I was.
Yeah.
I just don't like it when a group of people
Art of the Jews
are Jewish. I don't see why I should accept a bunch of people being Jewish all over the place.
Yeah.
If that makes me an anti-Semite,
okay,
I don't know.
I guess. But it's like, if you're going to have Jews Jewing it up, doing Jew stuff, and expect me not to be mad at it, then you're living in a fantasy world.
Yeah. I mean, he strikes me as...
an op?
Right. Like in the S tier of people on that list who might qualify for the moniker.
Yeah, right. I know it. Like if this were ever a good faith organization, like you would be like, okay, you might even see like things like David Duke on it, right? Former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. By the way, this is a side note, but Katie Halper recently had to like tweet out something like, I can't believe I have to say this, but David Duke is an actual anti-Semite. He's not just like a anti-Zionist, pro-Palestine guy. And only on Twitter do you see people going like, I don't think you know enough about him. I think you really need to do your research on David fucking Duke.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
but
Elon.
but it's a tricky thing. We're going to get into this and make fun of it, but
yeah,
I mean, it's been a year, and we've talked about this on this show, where I really think for the first time, actual events have caused almost a mandatory blurring of the lines between straight up anti-Semitism, a kind of pre-existing and non-topical and not related to, like, apropos of nothing, a kind of non sequitur hatred or dislike or distrust of Jews.
Yeah.
And a kind of fatigue of a Jewish supremacist state and its apologist committing acts of barbarity, like a tiny country purporting to speak for a tiny group doing horrible things and causing chaos virtually single-handedly and playing the victim.
Yeah.
And some people kind of snapping and being like, well, what's up with this Jewish ethnicity thing? What's up with this Jewish state? They start questioning the premise. They look into it and they get confused and they start getting, I'd say, more perplexed and confused about Jewishness itself,
right,
then I would like. And I didn't like it when Bassem was talking about, have you read the Talmud? Like, I don't want to hear about a particular group's holy books as singled out. Now,
right.
I can, but then on the other hand, on the one hand, on the other hand, this is the Tevye tradition, right? Of the great Rabbi Tevye.
Yes.
If the Quran is open for business in terms of parsing it for genocidal stuff, if we make fun of the Book of Mormon, if we make fun of all kinds of scripture,
oh yeah,
what's so special and precious and sacrosanct about our sacred texts? You know, and are we equal opportunity mockers and haters, or are we claiming some kind of special immunity? And if we're claiming special immunity, then I think we're acting like a bunch of assholes who people might get suspicious of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Liberal arts whites must answer for a heartbreaking work of staggering genius by Dave Eggers.
Yes.
Thanks, Adam.
But yeah, no, it's like the entire. I mean, one of the premises of doing this show in particular and talking about Zionism constantly on the show is to point to an anti-Zionist ideology that exists out there that can be applied across the board.
Right.
So, for example, if you're someone who, like, I perfectly understand people who are unfamiliar with people like David Duke and don't know his sort of modus operandi. Like, if they don't know what his whole thing is making white nationalism palatable to a like political mass. Like, his whole thing wasn't, you know, he wasn't saying any racial slurs. He wasn't going to use the tropes, like the explicit anti-Semitic tropes of like his predecessors. He was going to make it palatable. So if you don't know that, and I can see people being, flung into that and being like, oh wait, this guy seems all right. He seems like a nice guy. It's like, yeah, that's his whole thing. And the reason we talk about anti-Zionism and the ideology of Zionism in general is because if you apply, for example, what David Duke says about the Great Replacement theory, he's someone who is like a big, Great Replacement theory guy. They're trying to replace us. They're trying to replace the white race in America. Blah 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 blah. And if you have if you are anti-Zionist, you are actually anti-Great Replacement theory. Like, you are anti the idea of the ethno-state, or the idea of soiling your country's genetic makeup or cultural makeup through immigration. Like, that is classic Zionist shit. And it's classic Western imperialist shit.
Unless your anti-Zionism, quote unquote, is just a convenient cloak in 2024 for just not liking anything to do with Jews.
Right, exactly. But I would say...
And Zionists aren't wrong that there are some people out there who clothe it in that.
Of course. Yes. And then, it is, again, why I was like, this needs...
That's the first time, by the way, the words Zionists aren't wrong has ever been stated on this podcast. Please don't clip it. It was part of a larger sentence.
I mean, Netanyahu's got some good idea. No! Yeah, but anyways, this list is, of course, all the same sort of bad faith bullshit of stop anti-Semitism, just weaponizing, anti-Semitism.
I mean... Take John Cusack an example.
John Cusack.
He's not an anti-Semite. I mean, that guy will say anything.
Yeah, he's an actor. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Say anything.
Yeah.
Took a second. Yeah. He's high fidelity. I don't know too many of his movies, I'll be honest.
He'd be better off.
There it is. No. But mostly looking at this list, I was like, not only is it like mixing people like Dan Bilzerian and Hassan Piker, who is not an anti-Semite, but it is also, got two really, big snubs, and
this is the really offensive part.
This is the really offensive part.
This is actually the hurtful part.
Yes, me and you. Where's Matt?
Look, I'm I'm a bit modest, but I was definitely thinking of you, that you deserve.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of you as well.
Really?
Yeah, no, I was like, Daniel, you've worked really hard, and so I've got this right here. This is who my list would be. At the top here we have Hassan Piker, Matt Lieb, Daniel Mate, Dipsy. He's the that's the black Teletubby, and then the AT&T girl.
For sure.
All obviously virulent anti-Semites. And if you're nominating me, I would love to hear your reasons, and maybe, we'll turn it into an award show.
Well, I've given this some thought, because I if we're going to lodge this protest, we have to come with receipts, right?
Okay. Well,
one does not just roll up into Mordor and say,
that's right,
change the candidate list.
Yeah. One doesn't roll into simply go into Mordor
that's right.
and say, that the orcs are anti-Semitic.
Yeah, you missed too. So I've compiled a few of your greatest hits against our people.
Let's play a bumper. Here we go. The Anti-Semites of the Year Awards.
The Anti-Semis.
The Anti-Semis. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Producer Adam, for that.
So what do you think? Top 5?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Look, the fact is there was so much to choose from. I could have really picked anything you've said or done in the past year since I've known you, but these were just the 5 sort of incidents or quotes that stood out to me as
okay.
And I think easily any 2 or 3 of these boots hinkle off the list. Or knocks,
Corey
Jess
Bush.
Natal down to a runner-up.
Yeah.
Corey Bush, come on.
Yeah.
So there was one point I think it was at that Hollywood rally that you did that went viral, that video.
Yeah.
And you had a line where you sort of said, and this was after, like, just so people can be like, oh, Matt's a comedian, this was a bit. No, this was after, like, there was a point in the speech where you said, okay, everything before this was a bit, and now everything I'm saying now is literally true.
Right, I said
so
that. So
just switch, which is what comedians do, right?
That's
and they're always serious. You said, it's not that I hate the Jewish side of my lineage, because you're half Jewish, right? It just so happens that the only family members I've ever committed arson and or property damage, specifically gravestone vandalism against, happen to be from that side.
That's right. I did say that. That's true. And I can see how in that context, it does sound anti-Semitic. You're right.
I mean, I think it makes a pretty good case.
I think, I was trying to.
We were talking about song parodies for the show, which always is a thorny topic because of copyright and whatnot.
Sure.
But just once you sort of, you suggested we do an Ugly Kid Joe parody called I Hate Everything About Jew. and when I said, oh, like, you mean ironically, you said you had to pick up your daughter and you quickly just log off.
I said, no. I ran and picked up my child.
Yeah. I'm like, what's the point of that? You just want to list the things you hate about Jews and put it to the tune of a one-hit wonder from 1991?
Well, to be fair, I also suggested remaking the entire romantic teen comedy 10 Things I Hate About You, but make it 10 Things I Hate About Jews. So.
Right. And I know
had multiple.
I know what Jew did last summer.
Yeah. I had a lot of those.
Yeah. There was who can forget the Bat Hasbara Purim party where you dressed up as self-hating Jewish mobster Bugsy Seagull.
Bugsy Seagull. Yeah, no, I remember that.
I thought it was a great pun,
Yeah, I was like, this is worth it.
When we were discussing merch, which, is still an ongoing topic, we were, Adam and I are talking about hats or stickers or the t-shirts. You casually floated the idea of like an artisanal beer, an IPA with the I thought it was kind of a clunky title, Hopstage Tears.
Yeah, because like the hostages, it's like
and that you would gladly drink the tears of the Israeli hostages because that's just how you get down.
I mean, just having fun.
And then this one, I don't know how this would go over with the jury, but it definitely made an impression on me. I don't even remember the context, but we were having one of our conversations about oral sex.
One of our many.
It's virtually all we talk about, and if we're not talking about it, we're doing it.
That's right. Yeah.
And then there's a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah. I mean, people talk like, oh, why don't you do more episodes? It's like, oh, sorry, I'm too busy eating pussy to actually talk to you all the time about what Zionism is.
Well, exactly. But on one of the rare occasions where you came up for
Just
air,
do the
so
alphabet with your tongue.
Right to left, baby.
Right to left. That's how you get it done.
So on one of the rare occasions where you sort of came up for air, and you said, and I was so struck by it that I wrote it down at the time. I had to write it down very fast because it was long. But you said, and I quote, "Dude, I'll eat anything down there. I got me the cunnilingual version of the omnivore's dilemma. I don't care what's going on down there, what time of the goddamn month it happens to be, what your medical history is. It's an all-Matt-can-eat buffet with a world full of flavors, and I never get smorgasbord of it. I'm talking, I've got a whole walk-in closet full of custom bibs for the feasting. It's all beautiful and delicious to me. I'm a pussy gourmand, and I don't even speak French. Love me all the aromatic tasting notes. Only exception is if it smells like gefilte fish or tastes like potato kugel." And then you tried to say, we were like, whoa. And then you tried to say, well, that's not specific to Jewish women because anyone's genitals can smell like anything. But it struck me, and I think Adam, if he's honest, as a pretty specific aversion, especially for someone who claims not to discriminate vulvally.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Matt gets that Michael Douglas cancer daily.
I don't get that reference, but I like it.
He apparently he ended up getting some sort of form of throat cancer because he claimed because he was eating too much pussy. Oh. Yeah, so hey, shout out to Michael Douglas.
Well, that's the yeast of your worries.
Hey. So those are all good reasons. I've also submitted my own for you. Why I think you should be on this list.
I'm flattered. So, I don't have a hope in hell of matching yours, but let's hear it.
I think there's a shot. So Daniel Mate is a best-selling author, musical theater lyricist, and prolific anti-Semite. He has spent the last year impugning Israel's good name and attempting to delegitimize Israel. As the co-host of the Bad Hasbara podcast, he has said many anti-Semitic things about his co-host Matt Lieb, including calling him a fish fucker, despite the fact that he didn't actually fuck a fish. It was a rubber fish that sung songs, so it was not an actual fish. And yet he still called me that. He has done many tropes, including saying that the state of Israel is secretly controlled by the Jews, despite the.
Oh my God! I mean, it's such a well-kept secret.
Yeah, I mean, it's you keep saying it's like, in Israel,
it's literally a Jewish state, Matt. Well, I'm telling you,
it's actually the world's only democracy. So that's why I'm nominating you. Also, most importantly, Daniel Mate has misnamed Israel several times, calling it things such as Israel, Jizrael, Shitrael, sucks my dick real, into the dustbin of Histrael, Pisrael, new phone who Disrael, is not real, Disneyland for pedophiles, Sweet Dome, Alabama, that you've called the Jewish state, the you-wish state, the Jewish hate, the Gooch's taint, the Daniel mate, and, of course, future Palestine. So for all of these reasons above, I believe that, in fact, you are the one who should be getting this award to be the number one anti-Semite of 2024. That's my personal belief.
Well, look, either way, man, it's either you or. I mean, either way, it's what we can say is this: they Jewed us out of it.
They absolutely Jewed us out of it. This is like classic Jew stuff. You know what I mean? Classic. It's fucked up, and we don't like it. And, hopefully there's always next year, Daniel. Next year, maybe we'll just try a little bit harder. We'll do a few more tropes.
Try harder, Jew better. Okay, great. And folks, that's the end of that bit. These things are just one big unpopularity contest. It's true.
That's right. Oh, well, we had a lot of fun. We all get awards. But now it's time to bring on our guest who's
probably feeling uncomfortable.
I hope not. This guest is a fantastic podcaster in Lebanon from the Do Not Worry podcast. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone else, please welcome Anthony Sargon. What's up, buddy?
How's it going, guys? Thank you for having me on.
Hey,
Hi, Anthony.
Thanks for coming on. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
How's the not worrying going?
Yeah,
It's going pretty that is the worst name that you could have for a podcast in a country that is being bombed by Israel. But hey,
Sure.
we're doing okay. We've survived. The ceasefire is getting violated daily. Apparently, Hasbara fired some rockets into Israel today after Israel apparently did like 75 violations at the very least. So ceasefire is hanging on by a thread apparently, but there are like fewer drones flying over Beirut. Buildings aren't being bombed, like leveled like they were before. So there are
Right.
some positives, but it is kind of, you never really know. You know what I mean? It's
sure.
you're always kind of just sitting on the edge of your seat. So
Yeah. So, Anthony, we obviously on this podcast talk a lot about Israel and the current genocide that they are committing in Gaza and their apartheid state and their kind of warmongering and the way that they're currently just at war with every single possible neighbor that they could have. And while we joke around about this, there are, of course, people who are living in these places who are experiencing it. So what I would ask you is like, do you like this podcast? Do you ever listen to it and be like, this is fun?
it's a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of both of you guys. So
Hell yeah.
I'm very happy to be on. So this is kind of surreal. And shout out to Frogan. Thank you guys for giving Frogan a platform to come on last
absolutely.
week and share her story, because that's all been kind of crazy. So
Yeah.
big fan of all you guys. And
I love it. Well, so you when did you start your podcast and how long? Yeah, how long has it been going for?
It's going to be 4 years in January of this year. I started it. I was a big fan of, speaking of Frogan, a big fan of H3H3. This is an H3 inspired podcast. So
shit.
like we usually just react to like fun Lebanese memes, random internet videos, talk about random beef. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the past 3 years. But as soon as things started to go down in Gaza, we started to talk about, at least like we couldn't ignore it, honestly, even though a lot of our audience wasn't interested in that. I felt weird not talking about it. So we covered a lot of that. And then obviously when the war sort of, Lebanon has been at war with Israel for the past year. It was just kind of relegated to South Lebanon. And it was just like Hezbollah firing some rockets into the north, etc. But it became sort of a full-scale war about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
A little over 2 months ago, sort of the end of September. And that's when I felt like I had to shift my content to almost exclusively focus on the war. And we normally, like, I get criticized a lot by my Lebanese audience for speaking too much English. So over the last couple of years, I've been trying my best to speak more Arabic and to make the podcast feel a bit more Lebanese. But I decided to shift back to completely exclusively English, because I wanted, in case anyone picked up on this podcast, in case any clips got shared online, I wanted as many people to be able to watch this and just hear us out as possible. And luckily, like that kind of helped. Our clip, some of our clips got like reacted to by Hassan Piker, Kyle
cool.
Kalinsky, people I've been watching for many years. So all of that helped bring some attention to the podcast. And then I, weirdly enough, made a video criticizing Ethan Klein and the sort of a lot of the Zionist stuff that he's been saying on his show. Because my show was so heavily inspired by H3, I felt some sort of responsibility to talk about that. That video kind of went viral, and we ended up amassing, like, doubling our subscribers in just a few weeks. And most of my new audience is from the US, from Europe, from Australia. They're mostly Westerners. So it's been very nice to get this new receptive audience to kind of hear us out and listen to our story. And that's kind of like where we're at now. We still talk about silly TikTok drama, weird little, parasocial things.
Right.
But it's been weird. We cover Lebanon and we cover Palestine in almost every single episode, just because I feel like we have to. And there's not that many podcasts in Lebanon, so.
I mean, yeah, and you're offering something that I think, people don't get for the most part, which is like you are in Lebanon while it is being bombarded by Israel. So you're close to Beirut, is that right?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to be in a relatively safe area. So in a Christian area, I'm going to use air quotes a lot because nothing is safe. No place is safe when you're under attack by Israel. But relatively, they've focused most of their attacks on Dahye, which are the southern suburbs of Beirut.
Oh, they love those suburbs so much they named a whole doctrine after them.
Exactly, the Dahye doctrine. So
which
it comes from that. Yeah,
kill the civilians to try and win the war.
Exactly. So anyone who's in Dahye, chances are like there's a 50-50 shot your house either got demolished or something. South Lebanon, a lot of historic sites. Like if you guys know Baalbek, where like there's all these ancient monuments, and like Joe Rogan keeps talking about that 2,000 slab of limestone that's there that he's convinced aliens put down. That's here in Lebanon, and Israel was bombing like really close to that vicinity. It's like a UNESCO protected like heritage site, and they just I don't think they bombed the actual sites themselves, but close enough to make them kind of shake in their ground and just like send a message. And they did bomb some other random areas, Christian areas. They would bomb anywhere where a lot of refugees would go hide.
It'd be really funny if this is how alien first contact finally happens. Israel bombs the monolith that the aliens planted there 2,000 years ago, and it's like that's their antenna for and the aliens are like, okay, fuck this. We need to go down there and see what the fuck is going on.
What is happening, dude? Like, you can't just go around bombing our obelisk. The obelisk sees all. You're fucking with our communications. I would love that. That's how we get into an interstellar war. God damn it. Israel's done it again.
And then Netanyahu comes up with the people of star system, people of the Gamma Quadrant.
Yeah. Well, you are not our enemies. Our enemies are your leaders who put an ancient obelisk near one of our holiest sites. They are using you as human shields.
As non-human, as alien shields.
As alien shields.
As humanoid shields.
Humanoid shields. Oh my God. Yeah.
Anthony, I've been wondering this, and this is probably a touchy topic or question. The question of how involved Hezbollah was going to get in making good on their stated solidarity with Palestine since October 7th. And, Nasrallah, saying a lot of, strong sounding stuff, but there always was this awareness that there's a tension that to really make good on that, you're opening the gates of hell for the people of Lebanon. And can you speak to I doubt that there's one unanimous feeling about it in Lebanon, but what are the various feelings? What have they been about wanting to stay uninvolved, wanting to stay marginally involved, wanting to get fully involved and give Israel the pain that Hezbollah has been promising for years that they could? Can you just speak a bit about that tension between solidarity with, and of course, Lebanese and Palestinians have a fractured history as well. And there's many Palestinians in Lebanon. So can you just talk a little bit about those tensions?
Sure. Well, just as a disclaimer, I'm not like a political commentator. So everything, someone who might be watching might completely disagree with what I have to say. But I'm going to give you guys like the sort of in my estimation kind of, and based on everything that I've been reading and the people that I've been talking to. So it is very mixed in Lebanon. You have people that are all over the place. And people's feelings towards Hezbollah are very gray. It's not very black and white. Like, for example, the huge blast that happened August 4th in 2020 that basically blew up half of Beirut. That was because Hezbollah had stored a bunch of ammonium nitrate at the port. But also, that's unofficial, but most people believe that Israel bombed the port and caused that explosion. So it was kind of a tag team effort by Hezbollah and Israel. I was in Beirut when that blast happened. I almost lost an eye. I was home when that thing happened. It was one of the most traumatic events of my life. It was like a nuclear blast, and hundreds of people lost their lives. So I am not the biggest fan of Hezbollah. Hezbollah are notoriously anti-LGBT. When people were protesting in 2019, there was a big revolution in Lebanon. Hezbollah sent a lot of their there are people in the streets to like fight off the protesters, people like me that were trying to fight for a better Lebanon. So our relationship with Hezbollah, a lot of people's, is very mixed, but I also do recognize the need for Lebanon to have a resistance. I completely understand why Hezbollah came to be. They came to be after Israel came into Lebanon in 1978 and 1982. So while yes, I may disagree with them politically, and I think they have too much influence in our political system, I also completely recognize the fact that Lebanon needs Hezbollah as a resistance. Our military is completely nerfed by the U.S. and by the rest of the world. We're not allowed to have any air defense systems. We're not allowed to have jets. So how are we realistically supposed to be able to defend ourselves?
Not
against
allowed
Israel?
under what treaty? Under what sanction? Like what's the legal regime?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
For denying you that kind of sovereignty.
I don't know what it is, but if I look it up, I'm pretty sure it would be pretty easy to find. But we're literally just not allowed to have jets or air defense systems. So,
Crazy.
What choice are you giving the people to defend themselves? There are people in Lebanon who are completely in support of Hezbollah. They're part of the political party. They are ride or die, Hassan Nasrallah and Hezbollah. You have people like me that are kind of mixed. I don't maybe necessarily love their political influence and a lot of the things that they stand for, but I fully understand and appreciate the need for a resistance, and I'm thankful for all the sacrifices they made defending Lebanon against Israel and the efforts they made to help defend Palestinians in Gaza. You have extremists on the religious right that actually wished Israel annihilated more of Hezbollah. They completely hate Hezbollah. They're extremists. So they're actually angry that there was a ceasefire because they wanted Israel to damage Hezbollah even more so that there can be sort of a switch up in power. So feelings are all over the place. You have loyalists, you have people that are happy and in support of Israel for what's happening. So yeah, it's really not and Lebanon is very diverse. So we're like around 30% Christian, 30% Sunnis, 30% Shiites, and there's a small Druze population as well.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to sort of pinpoint or find anything extremely consistent amongst everyone. But I hope that kind of answers that question.
Yeah, totally.
It really does. It's a complicated picture.
Yeah, and it seems like this recent ceasefire agreement leaves it asks a lot more questions than it answers, is what it feels like. It feels like we're in this kind of wait and see moment. So just for background for people, the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah, this is it took place on November 27th, and it's going to last for 60 days, as long as either side doesn't start claiming that the other one broke it. I think Israel has been breaking it a bunch, but of course, I think in order for the ceasefire to fully break down, they both have to decide, fuck it, you broke it, and then they continue firing. So it allows for a troop withdrawal from southern Lebanon. So Israeli troops are being pulled out of southern Lebanon, as well as Hezbollah is also being pulled out. And it prohibits Israel from conducting offensive military operations in Lebanon, while requiring Lebanon to prevent armed groups, including Hezbollah, from launching attacks on Israel.
In fairness, Israeli troops were already being pulled out of southern Lebanon, just in body bags.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting kind of seeing politically how this is breaking down on a partisan level. Like, you've got the United States and Israel claiming victory because they're like, well, with this ceasefire, that removes Lebanon as a front from this war, and it stops them, at least temporarily, from doing what they've been doing for the last year, which was firing rockets in solidarity with the one goal of as soon as you stop attacking Gaza, we'll stop attacking you. So they're claiming victory for that. And of course, I think on the other side, Lebanese people and Hezbollah is claiming victory in the fact that, like, they, Israel once again tried to get into South Lebanon, and once again was thrown out.
Failed,
and failed miserably once again, because they just it seems like the only thing they can do in Lebanon is to cause mass death and destruction. They can't actually occupy it, at least in the way they once used to be able to do.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, in general, what have you been hearing about this ceasefire? What are the thoughts? Are people, um, mad at Hezbollah for agreeing to it? I mean, you said people on the right are. Are people? Yeah. What is the general feeling around this?
I think it's pretty mixed, and I actually put a poll up on my Instagram after the ceasefire to try to gauge people how they felt. So I was like, "Are you 100% satisfied, 100% dissatisfied, or are you mixed?" And like,
I love this. A survey.
a little mini survey, and I got about 900 votes when I stopped like checking the results, and about 66% of the votes were like, "We feel mixed about it." So while mainly people are happy, so like there was a lot of heartwarming footage of people going back to their homes in South Lebanon.
Yeah.
So people piling up in cars, driving back home, regardless if their homes were destroyed or not. They just want to go back home. So you see a lot of that heartwarming footage being shared. Who's going to be upset about that? So mainly people are happy that there is a ceasefire because people aren't dying anymore. We have 4,000 people that got killed over this last year, ever since October 8th. Most of those deaths came in the last 2 months when Israel kind of boosted up its hostilities. 16,000 people are injured. So at the very least, people aren't dying anymore. We have 1.5 million displaced people, so that stops at least, because they destroyed so many apartment buildings. So many people have been left homeless. It's winter time here, so it's cold. So the fact that we don't have to add to that number of 1.5 million displaced in the middle of winter, that's a positive. So no one can complain about that. There are some people that are upset because they think that by agreeing to the ceasefire, we are abandoning Gaza, and Hezbollah is officially decoupling themselves from the Palestinian cause. But I don't think that's true, and I think most people understand that Lebanon sacrificed as much as it could. And I mean, the responsibility, and to be honest, the responsibility shouldn't just fall on a tiny country like ours that doesn't even have a decent standing military. The rest of the Middle East is standing idly by as this is happening. Some of the wealthiest nations on earth are just watching. So for our country to sacrifice more, I don't think that that's fair to say. And for me, as a Christian who lives in a safe area, who hasn't had to sacrifice my home or any of my family members, I don't feel comfortable asking the people of South Lebanon or Dahye to sacrifice more so that I can feel better about myself when I'm tweeting about the war on Twitter and saying that like we haven't given up. So you have to be pragmatic. But the thing is, no one knows what that ceasefire means and what are we giving up. Israel considers, like, if someone is digging a hole in the ground, they might consider it someone digging a tunnel, and they might decide to bomb them. So they're going to have free reign over our airspace. No one's comfortable about that.
Yeah.
And they're already there's been 75 violations. That's like from a tweet that I found this morning. So that number has probably gone up.
Yeah.
And just to answer Daniel's question from earlier, I think a lot of people probably didn't want Hezbollah to get involved in the war. They were comfortable with the tit for tat, you bomb here, we bomb there, sort of not crossing that red line, because Lebanon has been going through an economic crisis. COVID crippled us a few years ago on top of the economic crisis. Like we've been going through nonstop sort of crap. So to add a war on top of that, a lot of people didn't think we could handle it economically. And to his credit, Hassan Nasrallah tried to keep this from escalating for a very long time. So I know he's considered a terrorist in the US and all that sort of thing, but he was a very pragmatic figure who, weirdly enough, was very good at de-escalating the situation. And when Netanyahu was desperately looking for war in Lebanon, it was Hassan Nasrallah that kept that from happening for as long as he did.
Yeah, so, it's true. And I remember there was a lot of shade thrown his way by a lot of people, in the Palestinian, solidarity spaces when he was, giving a big announcement. I believe it was in December, maybe November. And the announcement wasn't, we are, going to full scale war with, we're going to invade Haifa or whatever.
Yeah.
It was, he was following through on his promise, but he was not going to goad, Israel into a full-scale war. And Netanyahu, I think, was clearly desperately trying to get this front open, and in so doing has now had to pull back, with his tail tucked between his legs, and he has to try to spin this as some sort of victory. They talk a lot about like the Hezbollah infrastructure being severely damaged by the last few months. And so when I see what they use to as like evidence of that, I mostly see bombed out homes and cities. So do you how many people in your life do you know who have had to flee southern Lebanon? Like what has been your personal stake in this, other than it being your own country, of course?
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, I feel I'm one of the lucky ones, and part of me feels guilty. Like, even though my country's being bombed, I feel guilty that other people are getting it worse than I am. It's a weird feeling to get, but when you're seeing like, and I'm online complaining about the war, and then I'm like, I ask myself, do I have the right to complain as much as someone else if I'm not directly being bombed? But besides that, a lot of friends, mainly, a lot of friends have been affected. Some of them completely lost their homes. Some of them, their homes got heavily damaged because a building nearby got bombed. I have a vintage comic book business. It's called the Comic Stash, where I've partnered up with a small store in a region in Beirut. It's called Multiverse Games. They sell board games like collectibles, Funko Pops, all that sort of thing. Yeah. So I have a comic book stand there where I sell a bunch of vintage comic stuff from the 60s, the 70s, old collectible stuff. And on the final day of the ceasefire, in the last hours of the day, Israel was going ham, just bombing any place they could, causing as much damage as they could before the ceasefire went into effect. And they threatened the building that was right behind that shop. And Hamada, area is full of families, full of kids. It's just a bunch of nerds playing Magic the Gathering in the basement of that store. So like no threat there, but I have a massive collection of comics there, of like over like a couple thousand comics. Like it's worth a lot of money, and that almost got destroyed. And
you said Israel threatened it. By what means did they threaten it? Did they knock on the roof in their parlance? Like
no. So
what's the delivery mechanism for that threat?
So they tweet out these notices, kind of like what they do in Gaza. Sometimes they'll highlight a building in red, and they'll say if you live in that building or however many meters around, you have. They don't even tell you how much time you have to evacuate, but like you need to evacuate. And they share that stuff on Twitter. Like most people aren't on Twitter to see that. And half the time it's in the middle of the night. But that happened to be at around like 8 or 9 p.m. I can't remember the exact time. So they shared that picture out. So everyone in the shop had time to evacuate. Everyone was safe. No one was harmed. And luckily the whole building was fine. They just they smashed one window. But like that was just something that, and I even feel bad and I feel dumb complaining about a comic book collection when lives are at stake. You know what I mean? So, but it's just, but mainly a lot of friends losing homes, which is extremely messed up. And just, there's a lot of sad stories. We try to cover them on the podcast. Like someone I've never met, but there was a cafe shop owner that just was right across from her building. He used to sell her like chocolates and coffee her whole life, ever since she was a little girl. And he died. He got bombed. He was on the balcony when Israel bombed a building nearby. And he died. He basically watched that little girl grow up, and there's thousands of stories like that across the country. So,
that's it's got to be fucking insane, and I can see it being kind of people having mixed thoughts about the ceasefire in general, just because you've got there's just something that's so inadequate about the idea of a ceasefire when it comes to this like genocidal apartheid regime, where you just more and more it grows into this feeling of like, what would be nice would be a dismantling of this regime, and then a ceasefire, because at the end of the day you've Israel, like you said, they can. If someone digs a hole in South Lebanon to like dump their trash into, they can be like, you're breaking the ceasefire, time to bomb Beirut. And it just feels like an entire region held hostage, which, leads me to my next question for you, which is like, well, what if it didn't have to be? What if instead you were Israeli?
Ooh.
So, because I don't know if you know this, but turns out that South Lebanon is actually just North Israel.
Oh, you don't say.
I don't want to tell any tales out of school. Not since realtors declared Bushwick East Williamsburg. But there's a recent article in the Jerusalem Post.
That was a good Brooklyn joke, LA.
That was. Look, Adam's got Brooklyn humor as well as LA humor. there's a recent article in the Jerusalem Post, an opinion op-ed, about how southern Israel is actually just, southern Lebanon is actually just northern Israel. And we're going to read this and talk to you about it. But first, we have to take a quick commercial break. So everyone, please stick around. We will be right back.
Jumping Jacks was awesome.
And we're back. Hello, this is Bad Hasbara, World's Most Moral Podcast, here with Anthony Sargon of the podcast Do Not Worry. And we are not worrying because we here in the United States, and also you in Lebanon, are soon going to be a part of Israel. So there was an article recently in the Jerusalem Post that this is the headline. Southern Lebanon is actually northern Israel. Opinion. Thank you. When you see something like this, by the way, Anthony, is there like when you look at it, you're just like, oh, great, here we go. Like how much of you is actually like sitting here like expecting a if not a full-on annexation, like an attempt at a permanent occupation? Are you actually like worried about that?
I'm kind of surprised that it's not happening now. I'm not surprised because I know that Hasbara, in terms of like on the ground, like guerrilla warfare, they're pretty unmatched in the region. So for the idea to be able to take them down, that's pretty unrealistic.
Yeah.
But I thought they would make more of an effort, like to keep trying. I thought they were going to keep at least trying and lose way more soldiers before giving up. When I see things like that, I used to maybe a few years ago probably like would foam at the mouth and get like super angry. At this point, we're so used to this. Like anytime I hear someone talking about human shields or I don't even feel like I have the capacity to get angry anymore. I'm just like, are people actually like still falling for this? Like, can people hear the same thing over and over again and still kind of buy that as an excuse to murder people or to bomb a whole population? Like, there's a bunch of tweets from like unhinged people in Israel that are like, we can't wait to ski on your slopes, or we can't wait to do like just the weirdest things that we constantly see. Yeah. There's this lady. Her name is Carolyn Glick. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. She's like some kind of political commentator. Like she's saying that she said that Lebanon isn't even a country. She said it's a forward operating base.
Yeah. Yes.
She's like, it's not even a country. It's just a forward operating base with no culture. She's like, there's just a bunch of people there that decided to call it Lebanon. I'm like, what? And it gets millions of views on Twitter, millions of likes, millions of comments, and I'm just like, who believes this? Is this real?
Literally what a country is that a bunch of people there decided to call it something at a certain point in time.
Yes. Yeah. No,
but like Italy is a country. Germany is Canada is a country.
Well, this is like part of like the general like Israeli insecurity. Like one of the things that pisses them off to the point of which like they're trying to change the definition of anti-Semitism isn't just like the criticism of like Zionism or their actions or whatnot, but they constantly harp on the delegitimization of Israel. Yeah. They will not, accept Israel's right to exist. Like this is like the whole thing with them is like they keep talking about like the offensive nature of calling Israel like the Zionist entity rather than, saying country. And it's like the people calling you like the Zionist entity or like not recognizing you. It's like, yeah, we also don't, the United States doesn't recognize like North Korea, right? We know North Korea exists, but our government is just, decided that they're going to paint them constantly as a bad guy and do everything they can to undermine, their leadership and their people.
About 2/3 of the global South is under U.S. sanctions in some form or another. Like,
yes. And it just like the way in which Israelis react to that kind of repudiation, that form of repudiation is to be like, oh, that's delegitimization. We are a real country. They like say it over and over again. And everyone's like, okay, whatever. The point is you're genocidal maniacs doing apartheid. And they're more mad about being called not real than they are about people being mad about genocide.
Which is why the is not real nickname is
works.
so effective.
Yeah, they hate it. It's so funny. And so like because of that, they're always running kind of like the way they run defense against this is to be like, actually no countries are real. And it's like, okay, fine. So in this article, he kind of goes on to just talk about the reasons why northern Israel or southern Lebanon is actually northern Israel. So so as the IDF battles to clear southern Lebanon of Hezbollah terrorists, it is worth highlighting an intriguing historical fact. Is it worth highlighting? Is it? That's the question. One that many seem to have forgotten. Having grown up with an international boundary between the Jewish state and our neighbors to the north, we take it for granted that this is how it has always been and should be. But the truth is that the current border between Israel and Lebanon is little more than a century old and is entirely artificial.
Guess what's less than a century old?
Yeah,
Exactly.
a relic of a time when European colonialists whimsically drew lines on a map over a bottle of brandy in smoke-filled rooms. I'm sorry, but I love looking at like a bunch of Israelis looking at Sykes-Picot and just being like, these guys are just making up states. It's like, yeah.
Yep.
What do you think? What do you think Israel is? Historically speaking, southern Lebanon is in fact northern Israel, and the roots of the Jewish people in the area run deep. Whether or not this can or should be translated now into a political reality is a far more complex question. But there is simply no denying our connection to the land. He then goes on to just talk about different times in which, historical, in the Bible, in which they talk about the historical ancient Israel as having parts in southern Lebanon, and doing the Zionist thing of being.
I love it. Yeah, ancient texts. That's my favorite thing. Busting out the old quotes. That's it.
Yes,
that's
in the
how
book
you
of
know.
Joshua.
That's how you know. You don't just take it. It's your land. You're right. How did I miss it? How did I miss that quote?
Yeah. Oh, my bad. I'll just leave my home.
Go for it, dude. It's all yours.
This is just like it's like filled with quotes from the Bible, the Midrash, further evidence, archaeological evidence. This is like the classic Zionist like thing, right? Where you just kind of go like, well, we dug in this one hole in southern Lebanon, and we found a very old coin. That had a guy with a menorah, and another guy with the Star of David, and so therefore this is ours now. Let's see. Oh, less proof than Elizabeth Warren's college application. True. I love that Elizabeth Warren essentially just did Zionism, but for her, for her Native American roots. That was
But I don't think the issue here is a lack of evidence. I think the issue is, fuck you, it's inadmissible. Like, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works, exactly. Like, the idea of having, a historical connection to any place as being a pretense for doing, like, ethnic cleansing and colonialism is fucking insane.
And drawing new whimsical borders.
Yes.
The Bible is not a lease. That's right.
The Bible is not a lease. That's absolutely true. And it's interesting just like watching the same playbook being used, but for Lebanon. Because you just kind of see like, oh, wait, we can do this all day with every single neighbor that Israel has. We can talk about like the different Jewish connection to Iraq and the Jewish connection to Jordan and to Syria and to fucking Egypt. I mean, eventually this stops being like this. You would think it would stop. It's like it wouldn't be as potent.
I know, and that's kind of what was shocking when the war here like started and all of that same exact messaging started. And the whole human shields argument again, like Hezbollah is hiding rockets in people's homes, and like they have rockets in garages. Most people in Lebanon don't have garages. There are no garages. Most people live in apartment buildings. You can't fit a rocket launcher in a kitchen in Lebanon. But they already started just planting those ideas in people's heads. And I'm sitting here as a Lebanese citizen watching what happened in Gaza over the last year, seeing that exact same messaging being used on us. I was terrified when the war started here. I was convinced that like they're gonna do the same exact thing here, and I'm kind of shocked that there has been a ceasefire. To be honest with you guys, I thought it was gonna be way worse. But I think the fact that Lebanon is like a full sovereign nation that is like recognized by the rest of the international community, there's a bit more pressure to put an end to this pressure that does not exist for Gaza or Palestinians. Like they don't get any courtesies. Right. But it was kind of crazy seeing the same thing happen again, and having watched what happened in Gaza and seeing all of these brave like creators like Bisan or Montez share their stories for so long and share all this harrowing footage and people dying and being chopped up into bits and nothing happening, the world doing nothing to help. Yeah. And then seeing Israel do the same thing here, I was like, oh, like doesn't matter what I say or do online, nothing's gonna make a difference. Like if Montez and Bisan couldn't make a difference with what they were showing the world, what chance do we have? So it's
all of which raises the question, Anthony, are you ready to accept Israel as your
as your Lord and Savior,
as your personal Lord and Savior? Are you willing to join the Jewish state as a silent partner, let's say, because there's certain things on your applications that you know
it sounds great on paper.
Yeah, some kind of limited sub-citizen.
Sure.
I mean, what do they expect if they keep you? Will you be Israel's Puerto Rico? Yeah. Like, what do they expect? They keep, expanding Greater Israel and Greater Israel.
That's the thing.
There's a finite number of Jews.
Right. Yes. This is.
To fill it with.
This is the whole thing with the idea of like greater Israel and this like expansionist ideology is like it's so much of it is clearly just modeled after like American Manifest Destiny and of course regular ass European colonialism, right? But the difference was like citizenship when it comes to like these places is not as much like of the I don't know, ethno-nationalist, you know what I mean? Like when it comes to Israel, like you need to have Jews filling up these places. You have these like settlers in the West Bank and like throughout the world, obviously there are Jews who want to go and live on what is essentially illegal stolen land, but not enough. You gotta allow the Christian Zionists to move. That's what has to happen.
Well, you're already
Kevin
Christian.
Spacey.
You're halfway there.
That's
Kevin
true.
Spacey,
Is he Christian? I don't know if he's Christian or not, but he just went. Kevin Spacey is a new addition to Israel. They're lucky to have him.
Oh, God
he might
bless.
be moving to. If he moves to South Lebanon, that'll be cool. I'll move in next.
I can't
to
wait
Kevin.
for his video as Frank Underwood.
in Israel.
I'm
They
the new
say-
president of Lebanon.
So hey,
They say there was already a people living there and that I'm occupying it. I don't care.
They could get Army Hammer maybe to go next.
Yeah.
You never know. Just weird sex perverts. Just have them go to Israel. Send them all there, and that you just fill the rest of it up that way.
Yeah, that's true. That they just are like, all right, we've run out of Jews. Just whatever Hollywood sex pervert now wants to
Bring
go,
him in.
bring him in.
Raish Kelly.
Oh, dude. Like it is just it's wild because the way in which they interact with this like idea of colonialism is to look at it as something they're not doing and something that only existed in the past and was bad. Like they have switched. Zionism used to be open about their colonial aspirations, about it being a colony, until there was. In general, people became anti-colonial until there was a big movement of people decolonizing. And so they had to switch into being like, no, we're about being indigenous. We're indigenous now. And yeah, you're right. Colonialism is bad. and that's why we have to invade Lebanon. To continue, he just goes, so how was southern Lebanon cut off from Israel? So just how was southern Lebanon essentially cut off from northern Israel? The origin of this division happened a century ago. After the fall of the Ottoman Empire, Britain and France reached a secret accord in 1916 called the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which effectively divided much of the Middle East into spheres of influence between London and Paris. Basically, a line was drawn on a map. And it was that scribble which essentially came to serve as a border between Israel and Lebanon as we know it today. I love that, on this map, they're still doing Palestine erasure in 1916.
Right.
It's like, did they actually make a border between Lebanon and Israel, or was it a state that maybe you've heard of called Palestine? Earlier this year, an Israeli organization called Yuri Safon, Awaken, O North, was founded with the aim of encouraging Jewish settlement in southern Lebanon, and it has called on the government to act. While some may view this idea as far-fetched, it is worth remembering that just a century ago, so too was the notion of a sovereign Jewish state. After all, today's dreams have a tendency to portend tomorrow's reality, especially in the Middle East.
If you will it, it is no internationally recognized sovereign border.
Yeah,
if you will it, it is no international law.
If you will it, it is no war crime. Thank you, Herzl. By the way, and then it ends with a little bio of the writer. The writer served as deputy communications director under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Oh,
Completely
shocking.
impartial.
Yeah,
Impartial.
completely impartial. So are you saying, Anthony, that you don't want to be an Israeli?
Maybe not. It sounds tempting. Like they say they have, like, I don't know, the nice beaches, nice food, even though I think most of that food is pretty much ours. So I think I'll stick
Not
to
anymore.
what-
But
They
that's a
have,
great
this,
thing.
now.
they have this thing called hummus.
Yeah.
Plus, there's
They have a spice called za'atar.
Zatar. Well,
Zatar.
that one just went viral again over the last few days.
Yeah.
People have been freaking out over the Zatar thing. So
I love that.
Again,
It's-
I just find that stuff funny now. Like, I used to get mad. Now it's just kind of comical. I think the world has caught on. So as long as the rest of the world doesn't take it seriously, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? But it's
I mean, worst case scenario, you'd become Israeli, right?
I'll become
now,
Israeli.
Now you're Anthony Sargon, Israeli Arab citizen of the greater state of Israel. And now you can, do fun things like join the IDF and be in prison for no reason.
Exactly. Yeah. And the Lebanese government would love that too.
Exactly.
They would totally appreciate that.
They'd be like, hey, all right, why not? But yeah, there is, we're talking about Zatar.
At least I can get all the free McDonald's I want. If I'm in the IDF, I'll get free
Exactly,
McDonald's.
dude.
They will serve us free McChickens and free McGriddles, and that's all that
Dude.
matters.
I mean, kind of worth it. But yeah, here's what you're talking about. This is from a
Yes.
from a website called the Nosher.
The nosher.
Jewish Cooking 101. What is zatar? The Israeli spice you will want to sprinkle on everything. Our favorite Israeli spice is subtle and so versatile. This caused the funniest group of memes to be created
Yeah.
that is essentially just the theme song to this podcast, where people started creating ones that just said like, hot dog. What is this Israeli
Yeah.
dish?
Like a German bratwurst.
Yeah, German bratwurst. People have been like doing just parody versions of this fucking article for the last week, and it's been such a joy to watch, because I think you're right, Anthony. People are in general have like caught on to this form of Hasbara, this like food colonialism that Israel loves to do. They see, what is a classic, Middle Eastern cuisine, quote unquote, and just turn it into a thing that Israelis invented with their
And I was called. So I was a guest on Frogan's podcast Arabs a couple of months ago, and
Yes.
we had a small segment talking about like food and cultural appropriation, how Israelis sometimes appropriate our food. And Ethan Klein actually ended up reacting to that clip and just like sat there calling me and I'm an anti-Semite for saying that hummus is an Arab dish. And I'm just sitting there watching like my former idol, the man who inspired my whole podcast, with my face like plastered on his screen, just being like these fucking anti-Semites. And I'm like, this is
Jesus.
like what? And I'm being bombed as my country's being bombed. He's busy talking about hummus, and he's just mad about the hummus. And I'm like, that's just like what kind of world are we living in right now?
It
So,
is
it's crazy.
particularly crazy.
It's crazy.
Daniel, so Daniel, while you were gone, I don't know if you watched the episode, but I did say that
I watched a good portion of it.
I did say that you had died in a plane.
A cum drinking accident.
Yeah, cum drinking accident
I
on
appreciate
a
that.
deserted island.
Yeah.
But that you would be back, and you are back. But I don't know how much you know about this Ethan Klein guy, but he has been like on a year-long tear.
I'm old, guys. So the whole world of streamers,
Yeah.
such as yourself, Anthony. Like it's. I mean, I'm new to being a podcast host, but I don't.
It's
yeah,
too
the,
much.
the whole world of people who create content, and
Yeah.
and then just
And then
the
burn out.
the incredible amount of influence that can accrue to someone like that.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's very parasocial for sure. I mean, it's like the weirdest kind of internet drama you could get into, but it just has so much influence. And the fact, like Matt said last week on the episode, the fact that Ethan took it to like, he tried to turn it into action and actually tried to get people banned for speech and stuff. Like that's
Yeah,
when
right.
it got really serious. Like at first it's just clips. He's just complaining about people. That's still not okay. He sent a lot of hate towards Frogan.
Right.
and,
Of course.
and harassment and stuff. But sort of when you try to turn that into like legislation or get congressmen
Yes.
involved and sending letters to Twitch and getting, because I could get deplatformed. If Ethan sort of sets his eyesight on me for some reason, he could try to get me off of YouTube for some reason. There's nothing I could do about that. So
Right.
it is important to just to make that distinction, because according to Ethan, 90% of Jewish people are Zionists, because to him, being a Zionist is just thinking that Israel has a right to exist. And it's
Right,
way
yeah.
more complicated than that. And
Right.
just trying to simplify it or change the definition, and then having anyone who uses the term Zionist to be
Yeah.
deplatformed or called an anti-Semite, like that's not fair.
Yeah, and beyond not being fair, but it also like completely undercuts, I think, like this his entire whether he knows it or not, it undercuts his worldview about like the defenseless, Jewish American who is doing nothing but just trying to live his life and make his content and being, persecuted by the world around him. It's like, no, you are actively persecuting people who, including Anthony, who is currently in a fucking, his country is a war zone because of Israel's aggression. I mean, it's kind of an insane thing, but it's also one of the reasons why I find liberal Zionists to be so fascinating, because there's just like, there's an ideological commitment to being mad about the pettiest shit instead of something that is like grossly more detestable, like genocide and apartheid. Just being like, no, but how can you say that Jews didn't invent hummus? Maybe you should die, bitch. Like, that's like, whoa, what the fuck? Yeah, it is wild, man. I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't go after you anymore.
No, I don't think. I mean, it would be, honestly, he's talking about him has only helped the channel grow. So if anything, he's just helping me spread the message and share what's actually happening in Lebanon. So
Yeah.
all of that crashing out, he's been losing views, losing subscribers. So it's actually been having a real like world effect on them. And
Yeah.
I've been able to share my message with more people. So it's been great. And thank you guys for having me on and to be able to talk about Lebanon with your audience.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it.
I loved talking to you. We still have a little bit more time to talk about another podcast entering the podcast space, guys. Unfortunately, our time in the sun is coming to a close, because there's going
Who's
to
coming
be
for us?
just you know what the Avengers is? It's like all the Marvels guys. You've got like Iron Man's and the Hulk Hogan, all those guys.
Yep.
Stretchy arm guy.
Yep.
It's like a super team, right?
Captain Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Captain Yankee Doodle Dandy, with his shield. There's a new one of those, and it's going to give us a run for our money, and I'm scared and I'm afraid. I'm crying. It is a dream team. Brianna Wu and Elon Levy have started a podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah. They have started a podcast that is going to take the world by storm. And I'm just going to play just a little bit of it just to see the type of analysis that they are doing on how to up the Hasbara game.
So much money out there that the Muslim states are pouring into information warfare in this country. Where is Israel's generational project to get your most photogenic, interesting, well-spoken people on TikTok and to promote the hell out of them?
I'm sorry. So in this clip, we've got Brianna Wu talking about how the problem with modern Israeli Hasbara is that the Israelis are just not hot enough.
They're not photogenic enough.
They're not photogenic. They're too fucking ugly. You can't open up your phone and see people like Elon Levy or Hen Sieg.
They're photogenocidal.
Exactly. Yeah, I love this.
By the way, did you see that picture that an Israeli soldier posted of himself masturbating in a lawn chair, like overlooking the ruins of Gaza?
No.
Oh my God, no.
His pants are, it's sort of, you have to look closely, but he's got a tissue next to him, and it's like this, yeah.
You see his dick? You see his
You
hog?
don't see it. No. It's sort of from a 45-degree angle from the back.
Okay.
But it's a kind of like, this is how I feel about what we've done in Gaza. I'm jerking off to it. It was remarkably
oh my
disgusting.
God.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that guy was he wasn't hot enough. He didn't.
Are you saying that Michael Rappaport is not hot enough, Matt? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying it. Brianna Wu is saying it. I think Michael Rappaport is one of the most beautiful men who's ever existed.
A beautiful, lovely, lovely man.
I like him because it's like he looks like just like a mush of clay that is just rolled around in the dirt for a bit, and then just you make a little mouth on it and make it say racist stuff. It's just like a beautiful.
I used to love that guy. Anytime Michael Rappaport he used to be in sitcoms all the time. Anytime he used to show up like years ago, I would always be happy. I'm like, oh, it's the dude that swears all the time. And now he like fucking hates my people. Like I just see him celebrating the death of like brown people every day. And I'm just like, what? Like,
and I worked with him at 2 comedy clubs, and I featured for him.
Dude.
So yeah, I've worked with him. Done 7 or 10 shows with this guy, and he was relatively normal. I mean, he was a nice guy at least, but that's the thing about this whole October 7th thing is that a lot of people, Ethan, like just
brains got broken.
The switch just flip. We need a Timothy Chalamet. Very good. All right, let's continue this clip.
A different story out there. It does not exist. The enemies of Israel are funding this. Y'all are not, and neither are American organizations. There's got to be a generational project to educate the American people.
Are you Hasbara explaining to Elon
Levy?
He knows. He's working on it. Chill.
That's all he's been.
He's got a basement full of 10-year-olds.
Yeah, he's got all these new kids he wants to try out. They're cute, and they just want peace and a little bit of more land in Gaza. Come on.
He feeds them raw dog meat and sabra hummus, and trains them to talk about twist on Hasbara.
Yeah.
So what does he say to this? What's his response to Brianna?
Oh, we'll see. I mean, it's probably...
It was a project in 1948 to help Americans understand we needed to recognize Israel.
Yeah, no, that's it. I'm sure his response to it was something like, "You're absolutely right. The problem with what I've been doing for the last year is that I'm ugly as fuck, and that what we need is some sort of like hot Israeli." Like, it's just so funny to hear this as a strategy because it's funny coming from Brianna Wu, who is like, I mean, the perfect avatar for like the will never learn anything Democrat shill type person who just refuses to ever like learn a new piece of information and kind of like synthesize that into some sort of new idea. It's just someone who is
Well, in fairness,
ideologically committed to doing the same mistake over and over again.
I don't know about that, Matt. I mean, Brianna Wu is now this sort of trans voice that's saying the Democrats went too far to the radical woke left, and that and that abandoned the core medical issues that the trans community is facing instead of replacing it with an insistence on certain kinds of new gender orthodoxy, and just trying to split that difference. One of the things I found hilarious about Brianna Wu was that there was a day, like a 24-hour period, where she posted something talking about how her Zionism is an ineluctable consequence and sort of extension of her experience as a trans woman. That because I am trans, therefore I must support Zionism. And on the very same day, there was a post by, I don't know if this person is Israeli, but her name is Maya, and she is a detransitioner. So she's one of these people who regrets identifying as a man and regrets hormone therapy and all this kind of stuff. And of course, in the war over gender identity, that's like a total flashpoint, right? Detransitioners. Right. But this same person is a total Zionist and was like, the day October 7th was the last day that I wore breast binders or something like that and stopped mutilating myself. What I found hilarious was that each of these people who are on diametric opposite sides of the debate around gender identification and puberty blockers and all the attendant issues on that front of the culture war, were each using their particular positionality in that culture war to justify the exact same Zionist position, and saying that because I'm me, I could not but come to any conclusion other than Am Yisrael Chai. It was very, very funny.
It's amazing. It's just like nothing so perfectly highlights just the ideological incoherency of Zionism and its attempts to latch itself onto like pre-existing like political positionalities, because you just go like, you could pretty much take anything.
Well, and it sort of underscores more generally the emptiness of as an anything.
Yes.
Therefore, the position I've come to is inevitable because of that identity. Sure, identity has political components. But it's not a one-to-one. It's not linear.
No, of course.
And ultimately, it ends up just being circular.
Right. And it's just so clear that you're just going to, I mean, that's the thing about Zionism, is you can pretty much just reinforce your own worldview however you like. It's just kind of like, it's like Build-A-Bear, but it's like, it's like for building your own ideology.
But quite frankly, the same is true of anti-Zionism. I mean,
sure. I mean, you can
essentially,
do that.
because you and I are essentially saying, as Jews, we're not saying this, but we are in some ways saying like our sense of Jewishness is at complete odds with Zionism. Now, even if we weren't Jewish, we would still not be Zionists.
Right.
But like our positionality in there is informing, and the way we relate to Judaism is relating how we relate to Zionism. Well, Dan Bilzerian is saying, as someone who hates Jews, I can't,
true.
I hate Zionism. I'm like, what the fuck?
No, I guess you could make that point. I think the obvious difference in that to me is as much as like someone who was like an out and out anti-Semite might consider themselves doing something out of not hatred but actually love, I do feel like we more recognize, hatred when we see it, if it's
Yes.
hatred against something like the Jews or something that is like generally accepted.
Yep.
Whereas like, you can make a mainstream argument for being Islamophobic. You can make a mainstream argument in the West for why Gazans need to be killed by the thousands. And that's the fucking insanity of it.
That's right.
Yeah. But I just love that Brianna Wu is out here, just trying to solve this issue the only way that she knows how, which is to just to make the exact same content that has been made for fucking a full year now, if not, longer.
Look, man, as long as the Wu-Tang Clan doesn't get involved, I'm okay with it.
They need to call it the Wu-Tang Clan. That is the name of the podcast. Oh, I love it. I love it. I just love a new podcast is out here.
Is this actually a new podcast, or was that a standalone interview?
No, it is. There's a new Elon Levy / Brianna Wu joint.
Because that's a weird setup they have. Like that looked like that's a pretty shit. Like if they were talking about spending more money to spread more propaganda, they're not spending much on this podcast so far. They're like sitting in like a little like.
I mean,
closet
maybe
area.
They need to invest in a Homer Simpson clock.
Yes,
exactly. No, they got no microphones. Like
Yeah,
at least you guys have microphones. So
exactly, yeah, and they maybe Elon learned from his previous podcast that spending that entire money on a fucking straight up TV set is not necessarily going to translate into views and listens. So maybe he's trying to go more come down with it, no intro song, just him and Brianna just talking about, getting gay with their dads, that's what Come Town's about. And that's what Elon / Brianna Wu Town is going to be about. And I, for one, look forward to it. More content, the better.
I look forward to Stavros's appearance on the podcast.
Yeah, I want Stav to go on. All right. Well, Anthony, it really was a pleasure having you on this podcast, talking about Hasbara with you. Where can people find your work?
You guys can. It was a pleasure being on. Thank you guys so much, and for like using your voices for good. You guys are like the sort of anti-Zionist Jews are the greatest allies that I think we can have, because your voices are the most important voices out there. So thank you for using them to spread the word and to speak out against the atrocities that Israel has been doing. Mm-hmm. So it's been amazing. You can find me on YouTube at just Do Not Worry Podcast. That's you could have found me at the movie theater to watch Gladiator 2, but that has been banned from Lebanese cinemas because of an ex-IDF actor being in the film. So that's happening here. Yeah, they banned no Glickid in Lebanon. We're not getting any Glickid. So that's a Wicked and Gladiator.
So I guess you won't be getting Snow White either.
No, nothing with Gal Gadot. So all Gal Gadot movies regularly get banned. And now I just found.
Okay.
Those are okay. I'm usually for those. They also banned Venom 3, which I'm okay with, but they banned it because the producer is Avi Arad, who used to be in the IDF like back in the 60s. So I think we're not going to get any more Spider-Man movies in Lebanon ever again, which breaks my heart. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, so...
I'm torn on this, because on the one hand, I'm like, oh, that's messed up. You should be able to see Gladiator 2. On the other hand, I'm just like... Yeah, based.
Like, it's pretty based though. It's pretty based.
I mean,
it's pretty based.
It sucks. It sucks. But
I'm conflicted. Yeah,
that's what
I'm a big
torrents
movie
are
fan.
for.
I know. I'm a big movie fan, and like movie theaters are struggling everywhere in the world, and in Lebanon specifically, and they keep banning movies. But I'm like, I don't want to. Like, they're literally killing us. So yeah, if you're gonna be on screen,
I kind of get it.
So yeah, I'm all for that. So
dude, shit. I'll. Listen, I'll go to the movie theater. I have an iPhone. I'll make a little screener for you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you.
And,
I appreciate you.
That's how I'll help. You can find Do Not Worry Pod wherever you get your podcasts, and the YouTube link will be in the description. So please click it, watch the show, and support Anthony, and also any of the H3 Fallen fans. Please feel free to listen to this podcast and listen to Do Not Worry, and just we will fill that Ethan-sized hole in your vagina. Thank you. I'm sorry. What happened? Listen, I'm fading fast, Daniel Mate. Patreon.com/badhasbara. Please join the Patreon. badhasbara@gmail.com for all your questions, comments, and concerns. All right, everyone. Thanks again so much for listening. And until next time, from the river to the sea.
Give all those anti-Semites to Matt and me.
Push-ups was us. Krav Maga us. All karate us. Taking Molly us. Michael Jackson us. Yamaha Key